Hello, everybody. Welcome to the seventh episode of the TML Domain podcast. And I wanted to start off with making sure that everybody had a lovely Christmas. I hope you guys had a great time with family, friends, whoever you spent your Christmases with. The holidays are a great time. We got a couple of days off from hockey and sports, and we could just not have to talk about sports and rumors for a couple of days, and we got to spend it with family, which was really nice. And right off the bat, I have something I want to get off my chest. But I noticed that now the Leafs have this belt, which was given to them by the wrestler Edge, and he had one made for him, and he gifted it to Morgan Riley and a couple of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and apparently it's been in their possession for more than a year. And now it's something they pass around after games to the player of the game, which I think is super awesome. But this is something. So that belt maker that made the belt for Edge was the guy who made this belt that I custom designed. This is the original. This is the first and original one. And after this was done, the belt maker that I worked with spoke to Edge and said, this is something I have if you're interested. And obviously, Edge was very interested, being a huge Toronto Maple Leafs fan. And so, you know, Edge got one, but his is not exactly the same as mine. There's some tweaks to it, but the original that I designed, I made sure that the current Maple Leaf was in the front. I have all the different Leafs logos on the side plates. You can tell the difference because when the belt maker made this belt, honor, pride, and courage, he spelled honor the American way, but for Edge, he spelled the Canadian way. And that's how you know this is an original. That's how you know that this is not bootleg, something off of Etsy. This is the original. I designed this. Um, the belt maker was very nice and accommodating. So he actually had an original design where he had a diamond here, and I didn't like this because it looked like a baseball diamond, and I changed the design. I wanted to look way different than it was. The dual plating was obviously my idea. The red gems were also my idea. Blue strap, white back. Um, that's how you know that it's different. The one the Maple Leafs have, the one that Edge got made, has blue on both sides. Mine is blue and white. So it's something I posted a long time ago. You can see it on my Instagram. You can see it on the TML domain Instagram. You can see it on our Twitter account, TML domain. It's something I posted a long time ago, and the I've linked to the belt maker, and the belt maker posted this when it was first made, and then reposted it when he made it for Edge. So it's very cool that the Leafs like what I created, and they're using it in their dressing room, which is super awesome. And I thought that I would incorporate this belt into my podcast. And instead of thinking about a player for every game, I do a weekly podcast. So every week I choose my Maple Leaf of the week and who should get this belt as the Maple Leaf of the week. So that's something I will um, talk about towards the end of the podcast. Uh, so it's the Christmas break is here, and it's not the official second half of the season. It's the unofficial second half of the season starts. The Leafs have only played 34 games. So they're not quite at the halfway point yet, but the Christmas break is very important because there's a roster freeze. You can't make any trades. And when you come out of the Christmas break, you look at the standings, and most often, the teams that are in a playoff spot at this point in the season are generally the teams that make the playoffs come the end of the season. And once again, the Leafs are fourth in the NHL by points, third in the NHL based on points percentage. So, it's another season where Leaf fans can just sit back, relax, watch them win a bunch of games, be thoroughly entertained. You don't have to think or talk about the playoffs until the playoffs arrive. Um, this whole talk about the regular season not mattering is complete nonsense. If the Leafs were to play bad for a week, which they did to start the season, or a couple of weeks to start the season, everybody was talking about it. What's wrong with the Leafs? Oh, Matt Murray got hurt. Oh no, the goaltending situation. Everybody complains. What is the point of complaining if the regular season doesn't matter? If you're just not watching the games, so here's the thing: the people who say the regular season doesn't matter are the same ones saying, I'm not even watching the games until the playoffs come. But you're specifically critiquing games that have already been, so you're obviously watching. And that's the weird part in Toronto. You have the stadium sold out every night. I know tons of people that are Leaf fans. I watch the games. I watch the games. I'm not, I'm not gonna lie to myself and everybody else saying I don't watch the games. The regular season doesn't matter. Regular season 100% matters. To get into the playoff mode, to establish an identity, to establish a defensive game, to do certain things come playoff time, to have the kind of success that Leafs want to have in the playoffs, what you have to do is build these things into your game come the regular season. That's what the regular season is for. The good teams are always going to be there in the end when the playoffs start. But it's how did they get there? If you look at the Edmonton Oilers, they can win if they don't score 5 or 6 goals a game. Come the playoffs, it's the same thing. You saw the way they played Calgary in the playoffs last year. Every game was a high scoring game because neither goaltender could stop the puck, and it's whoever scores last wins. And it's one of those things where, you can try to you can try to um, you know, score your way out of the playoffs, but at the end of the day, you need to play a certain level of defense, and you need a certain level of goaltending, and that's the most important thing, I think. It's every time the Edmonton Oilers have come up against a good team, they got swept. Whether it was the Winnipeg Jets in the All Canadian division, whether if it was what was it, Colorado last year, like every time they go up against a good team, they get swept. And it's they make a series out of it against lesser teams. Last year, LA in the first round was a lesser team. The Leafs don't have that kind of the Leafs don't really have that kind of leeway. I mean, they are in the division that they are, and it's always going unless you win the division, you're always going to play Tampa, Boston. And that's just the way it's going to be until one of those teams fall off. And then when one of those teams fall off, the next team in the division, that's probably going to be good if, Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci retire. Boston's still going to be a playoff team, but are they going to be as good as they are right now? You never know. But, the Leafs don't have the luxury of playing themselves into the playoffs, like getting to the playoffs and then ramping up. The Leafs have to literally be at their peak come game one in the first round. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. I mean, the Leafs are in the division that they are. No one's making any excuses. Um, that's just how it goes. Um, when you look at the standings, the Leafs right now have played 34 games. Vegas has played 36, New Jersey's 34, Dallas 35, and the Leafs have a crazy high goal differential. Like right now, Carolina, who's second in the NHL, very good defensive team, is getting some amazing goaltending from Pyotr Kochenkov, who they just recently signed to a contract. They're only plus 16 in goal differential. The Leafs are plus 29, almost double. Vegas is at plus 22, Leafs are at plus 29. New Jersey's at plus 28, Leafs are at plus 29. Pittsburgh is at 9 plus 19, Dallas is at 26. You know, even Colorado is only at plus 12. So it's the Leafs are getting it done on both sides of the puck. They're scoring a lot of goals. They're It looks like now that Yarn Crook is back, the bottom six is pretty much set. They're getting into a groove. You can see from the last two games that they're getting the puck into the offensive zone. They're getting some offensive zone time. They're circulating the puck. They're cycling it. They're getting shots on net. They're getting scoring opportunities, and they're really, really working the other team. Whereas, you know, when they're about to change and the Matthews line or the Tavares line is going to hop on, you know, the other team is dead tired and they don't have the opportunity to go for a change. And the Leafs get out there, and then all of a sudden you see Matthews gets the puck to Nylander. Nylander gets it to Matthews across net, and he just puts it on a tee for Bunting, and Bunting scores it in empty net. And you saw that against Philadelphia, and I was, that fourth line, if they continue to play that way and if they grow, I mean, I can only imagine what the bottom six is gonna look like when Matthew Nyes arrives. I mean, Matthew Nyes right now, by looking at his advanced stats, he's still a top player in the NCAA. He's physical, points, all that stuff. He's doing everything right. And I think I think he took his conversation with Austin Matthews last year very seriously. Apparently, they had a conversation, and Matthew said, "If you come, you better be ready. It's a big jump, it's a big step, and you better be ready to contribute right away because we're looking to do great things and win in the playoffs. And it's a steep learning curve once you arrive." And Nice took it very seriously, and what he did was he decided to stay in the NCAA for another year to really become a well-rounded player, and he's having another good season. And I think when he arrives, that bottom six, now there's a good chance, we saw it with Bunting and we saw it with Hyman. There's a good chance this guy arrives and he goes straight to a Tavares line or a Matthews line. I mean, He's he skates pretty fast. He's very physical. He can separate people from the pucks. He's got a wicked wrist shot. Um, that's I could see him being the missing link on the second line left wing. But even if Yarncrook is the answer there, I doubt that he is long term. Short term, it's working out fine, and you got to ride it for as long as it works. If Yarncrook establishes himself on that second line and he's done with his groin injury and he's okay for the rest of the season, he could legitimately take that spot and force Matthew Nice to start off on the third line. I mean, like if you put Nice on a line with Kerfoot and Ingval, or um, you can switch it up. I mean, Holmberg. and Zach Aston Reese are good options too. I mean, you're looking for guys who can forecheck and handle that physicality of the game because forechecking, dumping in, dump, chase, forecheck requires smarts with the hands. You got to be able to separate guys. You got to be able to lift sticks. You got to get in there, finish checks. I mean, right now, David Camp, I mean, if you keep David Camp at center and put Nyes and Ingval with him, I don't know what happens to Kerfoot. I mean, if Jungkirk's on the second line and Camp and Ingval stay on the third line, and Holmberg is a fourth liner, has established himself as fourth line center, then maybe Kerfoot becomes expendable in a trade. Um, Maybe Ingval becomes expendable in a trade. I mean, the only two guys I would really look to move in terms of forwards, if you were looking to make space for a Nyes, is probably Kerfoot and Ingval would be the two guys that you could realistically move. I think they're both pending UFAs, so it's not like you're going to get a lot in return, but you're just moving out salary, right? You're looking at somewhere around seven. I mean, sorry, seven. One makes 3.5, and one makes just over two. So you're looking at $5.5 million. You're moving out. You got Muzzin on LTIR. Doesn't look like he's going to be playing anytime soon, which is a real shame. I mean, we saw what the Leafs looked like in the playoffs when Muzzin wasn't in against Montreal. We saw it, and the Leafs were a much different team. Once he was in the lineup against Tampa, I mean, the Leafs scored more goals than Tampa in that series. Now, even if it's one more goal, the Leafs scored more goals than Tampa, right? So people can say that it's you know it's not on the goaltender. It's the Leafs didn't score enough goals. Hey, the Leafs went to 7 games. They were up in game 6 and they lost game 7 2-1, right? You need your goaltender. You've seen it a lot this season. You've seen a lot of it this season. You've seen it a lot this season where Matt Murray comes up with a save, Samsonov comes up with a save, and then all of a sudden, the Leafs win a close game, or it stays close, and um, the Leafs go and score a couple of more goals, and all of a sudden they win 4-1, or they win 4-2, or 5-2, or something like that. The Leafs, the kind of goaltending they're getting this year is playoff goaltending. I mean, you see that game against Minnesota, Sandy makes a horrible mistake. Puck goes right in front to Kaprizov for a one-timer, and Murray makes that save. That's goaltending that the Leafs need in the playoffs. And Jack Campbell was never going to give that to you. It's so it's very I mean, like, it's very apparent what's going on this season in Edmonton. The guy's lost his job to Skinner, and not only did he lose his job, but the Skinner's playing so good that they had to lock him up to some sort of contract so that if he kept playing like this and went to the end of the season and it had a playoff run of a couple of rounds, he wouldn't be too expensive. So they went and paid him now. And now for the next 3 years, um, the Oilers are going to be spending over $7 million on goaltending. And kudos to Kyle Dubas for seeing that coming. I mean, obviously, the way they treated Jack Campbell, barely talked to him, no offer, no real offer in terms of money, just gauging interest. I mean, that's the way you play it. You're like, you think you're a $5 million goaltender? By all means, go out there and get that money. You're entitled to get paid whatever you think you can get paid. But you're definitely not going to get anything. You might not even get half of that in Toronto because we understand we have a better way of evaluating you than they do. The Edmonton Oilers have been sucking up shitty Leafs players for years that couldn't win nothing. Cody Ceci was garbage here. Zach Hyman didn't win nothing here. Jack Campbell was garbage in the playoffs here. And all they did was suck all those players up. And if it wasn't for McDavid and Draisaitl or maybe Ryan Nugent Hopkins, where are they going to be? Where that team is easily in the draft lottery every single year. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I like the way the Leafs are built. They traded Malgin, which really made sense. Seeing how that fourth line right now is playing and gaining momentum, and the Leafs are seeing where the success is coming from. Uh, Going out and getting a player like Dryden Hunt makes sense. That's the way the bottom six is going to have to play. That's the type of player you need. You know, nothing against I was just about to say Evgeny Malgin. Um, Malgin is he definitely has skill. I mean, you saw in his very last game with the Toronto Maple Leafs, he goes around a couple of defenders, gets over the blue line, and rips one off the post. And he's got a lot of skill. He's got offensive skill. He can score goals in the NHL. He's definitely an NHL player, but it's just the way the bottom six is built right now. The Leafs are generating offense in a different way, and unless he was going to play on one of those top two lines, it wasn't going to work for him. And he got the opportunity to play with Tavares, but it's just the way it is. The way it is. It wasn't going to work out. Um, Overall, I really don't have anything bad to say about the Toronto Maple Leafs. This first little bit of hockey, the unofficial first half up until Christmas has been pretty eye-popping to see the Leafs um, handle as many injuries as they did. At one point, Murray was hurt. At one point, Samsonov was hurt. Shelgren was playing. We lost our top three defensemen. We lost Muzzin. We lost Riley. We lost Brody. Yarncrook got a groin injury. I mean, like, it's unreal how much injury they've had to deal with. And like a seasoned veteran team, they're like, this is the way we need to play, and we need to go out there and win these games. And they've just taken care of business, and they're not complaining. Injuries don't matter. This looks like a veteran team. Like when I think of the Boston Bruins and I think of teams like that, I just think of veteran teams. No matter who's in the lineup, they play a certain way. It works, and it's winning hockey, and they just win. And I think that's what's happening with the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. They've finally established an identity, and that was one of my main pet peeves with Sheldon Keefe. He's been the coach for a long time, and this team has still not yet developed an identity. And they finally have that identity. They're blocking shots, they're playing defense. It's a little tough for their goaltenders right now. The Leafs goalies don't see a lot of shots in the first period, or it's the first two periods, to be honest. The other team, against Tampa, I think Tampa only had like 8 shots through two, and I think Philadelphia had 8 or 9 through two. Let me just check this out. I had it up. Yeah, Flyers only had 19 shots. It's tough for a goalie. They sit around for a long time with no action, and all of a sudden there's like a big chance or big opportunity. And Sheldon Keefe has talked about that, where when you play this type of game and your goalie is not, is standing around a lot, you have to be cognizant to not give up the big opportunity where it's like a one-time play or a tap in, you know. on the side of the net or something like that, where your goalie is might not be as sharp as he needs to be. So it's interesting to see the way this team has developed. Basically, the Leafs, outside of Matthews, Marner, John Tavares, and Nylander. Outside of those four guys, everybody's a defensive forward. Bunting, Yarncrook, Kemp, Ingval, Holmberg, Zach Aston Reese, Dryden Hunt. Everybody's the type of player that plays a little gritty and just blocks shots and plays defensively, doesn't worry about offense too much. But that bottom six is producing a little bit of offense through that defense. And I guess that's why they're buying in. They're seeing the results, obviously. So it's interesting to see this development. I've been waiting a long time. Um, before I wrap up this episode of TML Domain Podcast, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, for continuing to watch. I really appreciate your support. Hit the like and subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Um, but my Maple Leaf of the week before we went into the Christmas break would have to be William Nylander. Uh, he got a couple of points against the Tampa Bay Lightning. He got 3 points against Philadelphia, and he's really having an eye-opening breakout season, and I'm happy for that. He's dealt with his fair share of criticism in Toronto, and it's unfortunate. I mean, it's um it's hard to fly under the radar in Toronto, but he's only 9 goals back of McDavid for most goals in the NHL. So that is no one's talking about it, and it's hard to believe that you could fly under the radar in Toronto, but he has, because no one's talking about the 20 goals before Christmas. And it's significant. If Matthews had 20 goals before Christmas or 21, 22, we'd all be talking about it. So it's shout out to William Nylander. You deserve this. You've had a heck of a week and 2 big wins for the Leafs, especially against Tampa. That was a very big game. So like I said before, appreciate you guys tuning in, watching these episodes. I love making them, talking hockey with you guys. We're going to do a live one soon, and we can get everybody into the chat. And we haven't done that in a while, actually. So we'll do that one soon. Take care. Happy New Year to everybody. We'll see you guys in the new year. Have fun, be safe, and as always, go Leafs go.